Thank you. Before I call Mr Findlay, can I just suggest if members do not wish to take an intervention, it's up to them. Okay? So please do not continue to pester a member for an intervention if they're not taking an intervention. Neil Findlay.
Officer, since entering this Parliament, I have campaigned for constitutional change based on the principle that powers should be devolved for a purpose, and that purpose is to create a cooperative, progressive and socialist society. There is little point of having powers or repeatedly calling for them, then not using those powers when you get them. And that is what we have seen with taxation, social security, procurement and so many other areas where this government is failing our citizens. In the 65 public meetings I spoke at during the referendum, I argued for a federal system of government where power is devolved to the most logical and appropriate level. I want to see government and public bodies at local, national and supranational levels use their powers to create full employment, rebuild the public services that civilise our society, provide homes for all our children and end the scandal of 260,000 Scottish children living in poverty. Devolving power, as we have seen, does not mean progressive change follows. That requires political will, hard cash, the redistribution of wealth and power, and a commitment to face down the corporate and new establishment interests that control Scottish society and the economy. Presiding Officer, we had a referendum, the once-in-a-generation event that the former and current First Minister spoke of, but of course they now perform verbal gymnastics or resort to amnesia to disown their words. But of course the camera never lies. On numerous occasions I have heard the First Minister demand that if there is a majority in this Parliament to have another referendum, then the will of this Parliament must be respected. But of course this argument only applies when it suits the First Minister's case. Where was this great champion of parliamentary democracy when this Parliament defeated her government on fracking, on NHS cuts, on Highlands and Islands enterprise, on council funding, on the offensive behaviour at football act, on failing education policy and local government's cuts? I will give way to the First Minister if she can tell us why it suits her argument, but when she is defeated she rejects democracy. I will give way if the First Minister wants to tell us. That tells you everything. Tells you everything. Come on, tell us. Not a movement from her. Did she change her policy after those defeats? No, she ploughed on regardless of this Parliament. So let none of us take any lectures from the First Minister about respecting the will of Parliament, when by her own arrogant belief that she can do no wrong, she has shown nothing but contempt for this Parliament. And what about her little helpers in the Green Party? What about her little helpers in the Green Party? A party that has repeatedly claimed to stand on the moral high ground on so many issues, claimed they were the champions of democracy, that they do politics differently from other parties, yet at the budget the worst negotiators in history sold out public sector workers and council services at the first opportunity. And now they rip up their manifesto, which said if a new referendum is to happen, it should come about by the will of the people and not be driven by the calculations of party political advantage. Another sellout. At this rate, Mr Harvey will be declaring his undying love for Donald Trump. And, Presiding Officer, we come to the issue of Europe. Last Tuesday the SNP policy was to remain in the EU. The following day they were joining EFTA. Saturday it was EU, and according to the former First Minister, we are back to EFTA again. Is it really the government's plans to see powers return from Brussels to this Parliament, only for them to hand them back to Brussels again? Let's save ourselves time. Like the West Lothian question, let's call it the Alec Neil question. If an independent Scotland was to rejoin the EU, it would have to join or commit to a future date to join the euro. And most worryingly of all, accept a 3% budget deficit. And of course Scotland has never been asked if it wants to be a member. So should there be a referendum, we need clarity from the government. And can the First Minister tell us how public services would be paid for under her independence plan? when there would be no Barnett formula that gives us over £1,000 extra per head? How would it be paid for with the oil price at the level it is now? And how would it be paid for with a 3% budget deficit demanded by the European Union? Presiding Officer, people want a job. They want good schools for their children to live in, to get educated in. They need care and dignity in old age and to live in clean and safe communities. The Government and this Parliament's energy, time, budget and focus should be on these things, not another 2 years of constitutional wrangling. Presiding Officer, I believe that all of us want to live in a better society. But socialism and nationalism are two very different political philosophies. As a socialist, I want to live in a country that retains UK-wide fiscal redistribution, a united trade union movement and social solidarity based on class, not nation.